Are you afraid of sentimentality in photographs?
I don't quite know what sentimentality in photograph means. What do you mean? Can you
Well, there are photographs which appeal very much immediately to the sentiment.
This is a very difficult question, because I think it applies mostly to pictures of people. You can hardly use it in connection with objects. No. So.
But you have photographed people.
I have photographed a few people, but rarely ever in the form of portraits. These are pictures of people doing something, professional people mostly. And I could show you some. I have some in the book here. This is what you might call a portrait of a doctor. Actually, it is a symbolic picture, because all it shows is the mirror that used to be so typical for doctors, the symbol of the doctor, and the silhouette. But I think it's a very strong picture, and anybody will instantly say, that's a doctor, even though you cannot say which doctor.
It is a portrait of a doctor, not the portrait of Dr. So-and-so.
It symbolizes medicine, so to speak. Now, here I have a number of these portraits. Here, for instance, are portraits of two photographers. This one here, on this side, is Carl Meilens, who was a very famous life photographer. He's still alive. And this one was one of the lab technicians who loved to work with a tiny, tiny 2-bits Japanese miniature camera.
Still, in both photographs, it seems almost that their camera is much more important than the human side, seems to be pushed back.
In a way, that's true. But you see, in both cases, the camera is an extension of themselves, because that's the way they work, they live through the camera, make their living with the camera, and the camera is an extension of their eyes. So it is part of them, so to speak. As I said, these are not real portraits. Now, this here is probably the most famous photograph I ever made. That has been used hundreds of times. It's been in all the magazines. Yes. Here, for instance, there are two more portraits of professionals. This one here is the sculptor David Smith, who is dead now.
Yes.
At work with his blowtorch, welding. And this is a physicist. His name is Dr. Meggers. This is another photographer, Timberman, Elizabeth Timberman was her name. And she's editing film. And I happened to see this picture. I was in the same room with her, editing my films on a light box. And we were side by side, and she looked up and asked me a question. And I saw this absolutely beautiful light illuminating this absolutely beautiful young woman. So I said, Timmy, I have to photograph that. Had no camera. Okay, we'll do it again next time. And we staged it then. But it is exactly where I saw it the first time. It is a post-spontaneous photograph, so to speak.
But it seems to be one of the few photographs where one can feel a direct relationship between the subject and the photographer.
Quite true, because that's the way it was. She asked me a question, I looked at her, she looked at me. Now, this is a photograph of a diamond cutter with his fantastic spectacles, and when I put the lights on him, I saw all these reflections that instantly suggested the sparkling of diamonds to me, and so I photographed him this way.
But all these photographs, I have the feeling, have very little to do with the actual subject. It's your interpretation of the world.
It is. They are not portraits. These are representatives of their profession, so to speak.
Formally, if you look at this portrait there of the diamond cutter and you think about the mask in the British Museum,
yes,
there's a straight link.
Oh,
yes, I do think there is a straight link between your almost abstract later photographs and the very early photographs on Coney Island.
Yes.
A straight formal link.
Yeah, yes. I know. It's one of my weaknesses, maybe. I see people as almost as objects.
You are very fascinated by nature.
Yes, I've been all my life. And I photographed it both for Life magazine and later especially for myself. I would like to show you a few pictures which I have here. This is a skeleton of a gaboon viper. The way it is constructed is just a marvel to me. All these different ribs and vertebrae, everything growing natural by itself according to a pattern that is transmitted from one generation to another in microscopic form. It's all there. It's in the egg cell and the sperm, and invisible. All the instructions to construct a snake, to make it grow properly, stop the growth when it has to be stopped, and make it so it works, it functions. And this is only part of it. There is the heart, and there are the blood vessels, and the nerves, and the brain, which can think. All of this comes out of virtually nothing invisible, out of an atomic structure. That to me is beyond any marvel.
Do you believe that a photograph is able to make nature more beautiful?
Not more beautiful, but it interprets nature so you get more out of it, because it shows you things that you hadn't seen before, not consciously, or things you hadn't thought of before. For instance, that there can be beautiful pattern in sand. Most people don't realize it. To them, sand means beach and sunning, feels nice on the feet, on bare feet, but that it has structure and pattern that has hardly ever occurred to them.
We perceive nature in color,
Yes.
and yet you all choose to photograph in black and white.
I can make stronger statements in black and white. I can control my picture much more.
Is that a technical problem?
In part, yes. Because, you see, contrast to me is a very important element. And if you photograph on color film, contrast is an enemy. Because if the contrast is too high, you literally get overexposure and underexposure in your same transparency. The shadows and dark parts are underexposed, the highlights and light colors are overexposed, and the effect is most unnatural. So in color photography, you always look for a very soft light. You avoid harsh shadows and high contrast. Otherwise, it'll look unnatural.
It also cheapens always a little bit.
Very
color.
much.
Is this because of advertising?
Yes. And not only that, but it is, I think, because you are so used to it. It's only what you see every day. You have seen it before, it doesn't interest you anymore. As a matter of fact, if you look out here, this is very beautiful. But when you see it in the picture, it is this small. It is reduced in size, and the color probably is almost right, but not quite. It looks gaudy. And you have seen it before, and you say, so what? I have it here. Why should I look at this miserable reproduction?
You take the most natural object, and it almost looks artificial once it's been photographed.
Yes, but that's the way it is. That is the revelation of the camera. It shows you more than you saw. That's why it looks artificial, because in a way it looks unnatural, which means it does not look the way you are used to seeing it. Although actually it is like that. I never fake anything, you see. For instance, I have, this is a good example. This looks certainly most unnatural. This is the skull of a monkey. It's part of a story I shot for life on bones. And as usual, I wanted to emphasize the structure of the skull, the way it is constructed. If you just look at it, you see a round skull cap and the big eye holes with the eye sockets, which are normally dark in a skull because there's no light. So it doesn't show much. Besides, it looks dull. So I put a small light bulb into the skull and transilluminated it. That way, it is almost like an X-ray photograph. I see the structure of the skull. I see these braces here that reinforce the joints of the sutures where the skull is weakest. I see these circles here which reinforce the eye sockets because the circle is the strongest structural form there is. You see, the way nature has constructed the skull is the way a modern engineer would construct it if he had to construct the skull. These things are fascinating to me, to see how nature has done things that we only do now or realize now. And there it is, has been there for millions of years.